few other verbs that require preposition before adding the second verb. So we have aprender a, ayudar a, comenzar a, empezar a, enseñar a, insistir en, ir a, which we already talked about, and tratar de. Two other ones that you're going to see very often, acabar de, to have just done something, and volver a, to do something again. So let's go over some examples. And the first one, yo montar bicicleta. Which one would that be? How would we fill that in using aprender a? Yo aprendo a montar bicicleta. I am learning to ride a bicycle. So as you can see, you conjugate the verb aprender and you always remember that a. One. How would we conjugate volver in this example? Ella vuelve a aprender a montar bicicleta. So we use two of our vocab words in there, volver a and aprender a. So she learned how to ride her bicycle again. Last example, how would we conjugate enseñar a? Nosotros enseñamos a montar bicicleta. We were teaching how to ride bikes. All right, here are some verbs that already include the preposition in them. So you will never need to use a preposition after these verbs. This is a little bit tricky because in English you might want to automatically add the preposition because you're so used to it. So when you start learning these in Spanish, you might want to naturally add a preposition, but these come with the preposition already built into them. So buscar already means to look for something. Escuchar already means to listen to something. Esperar means to wait for something. And mirar means to look at something. So that preposition is already built in. There's no need to add one. Two verbs that might drive you crazy when you're getting to know Spanish are saber and conocer. They both mean the same thing, to know. However, you cannot use these interchangeably. So on the left, you have the different forms of saber in the present form. And on the right, you have the different forms of conocer. As you can see, they're both irregular, so you're going to have to memorize them. Okay, when do we use conocer? You want to use conocer if you are talking about knowing people and places or being acquainted with something or someone. So let's look at these examples. Yo conozco a la doctora. Ella es mi vecina. I know the doctor. She's my neighbor. So if you're acquainted with someone, you're going to use conocer. Second example. Él conoce bien la ciudad de Harrisburg. He knows the city of Harrisburg well. If you're well acquainted with a city, you would use conocer. Third example, no conocemos esta iglesia. We are not familiar with this church. So if you're not acquainted with something, you'd use conocer. So again, people and places or to be acquainted with something would always be conocer. On the flip side of that, the verb saber is what you would use if you're talking about knowing facts and information. Yo sé cuántas clases necesito para graduarme. I know how many classes I need to graduate. So that's a fact, that's some information that you know, so you would use saber. La estudiante sabe la historia de Venezuela. The student knows the history of Venezuela. So facts and information, history, you would use saber. And the third example, no sabemos dónde está el hospital. We don't know where the hospital is. So that is information, in this case, that you don't know. You would use saber. One other major reason to use saber is when you're talking about knowing how to do something. So if you say any form of saber followed by the infinitive, it means to know how to do something. In the example, yo sé cocinar. I know how to cook. So because we have sé, which means I know, followed by an infinitive, we know that means you know how to do something. Okay, that's all I have for you today. We're going to practice a lot with some activities, and hopefully this will become easier as we go along. Thank you. Gracias.